And this is why the trans community is gaining a horrible reputation and acceptance is going down because, no offense, but they are becoming the screaming baby on the airplane of America. And most people are ready to reach for the parachute and jump.
LGBTQ civil war between Mike Harlow and Polly People. I'm going to bring them both out, let them introduce themselves. We're going to start with Mike. Mike, how you doing tonight? It's good to see you.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, more than happy to have you. It's good to see you again. Haven't seen you since you were whipping ass with my wife, right?
I love her.
Yeah, that was a great time.
She told me she had drinks, so I was like, I need mine.
Gotta have one. Polly, why don't you introduce yourself? How you doing tonight?
Hello, I'm doing well, Mr. Fascist. My name is Polly People. I'm a Twitch streamer. That's what I do. Twitch.tv/PollyPeople. I'm a trans woman, and I believe pride is terrific and solidarity important for civil rights.
Gotcha. Mike, why don't you go ahead?
Hey, God, where to begin? So I think what's currently happening with the LGBT community is very sad to see because it sort of goes against so many things that led us to gaining acceptance for so many years. You know, there was once a time where gay people were actually fun, if you could believe it, and were at the forefront of art and comedy and rebellion. And now, I hate to say that, but the only thing we're at the forefront of is censorship and taking offense to everything. And it's like the motto of the LGBT community today is just, that's not funny. It seems to me today their two tenets are basically control and conform, because they have this whole line about, you know, accepting people and, you know, non-conforming and all that, but they have such a visceral hatred for anyone who falls out of their norms. And that's proven by exactly what Dave Chappelle was talking about in his special. So I think that the LGBT establishment has become a quite hateful cult. It exhibits all the signs of a cult. And something that I really hope I can accomplish in my speaking in general is to sort of create the distinction between LGBT people and radical alphabet people, because we're sort of being conditioned to believe that you've one of two choices. Either you have to bow at the altar of radical gender ideology, or you have to shun trans people and not accept them. And that's a false choice. The enemy is not trans people. It's a radical authoritarian ideology that are using trans people. So hopefully that's something I can create the distinction between, because acceptance of LGBT people is declining for what I think is a very obvious reason. And I would hate to see it come to a point where trans people are the baby getting thrown out with the bathwater, or gay people are the baby getting thrown out with the bathwater. So I think it's important for us to all come together to stand against authoritarianism.
Well, that's an interesting point of view. So, in all kinds of fights for civil rights, there's always going to be those people who are collaborators, people who will turn on their very group, people who represent their interests, people who fight for them, people who have for decades fought for them because they have crossed the line into, in their view, acceptability. And anybody else that comes after that, fuck them. Right? Fuck those weird trans people. Fuck those weird trans people.
The enemy is not trans people. It's a radical authoritarian ideology that are using trans people.
Right? Fuck those weird trans people. I'm a cis white man. I'm in with the right wingers. So, you know, this is not a surprise to see we have people coming in here like pick me energy, sort of, oh, love me right wingers, as if once the trans people are severed from the LGBT, once the lesbians are severed from the LGBT, they're not going to come for the gay men like you're all like you are not at risk. It's so fucking stupid. We need to keep fighting for civil rights, and it's not a cult if you're fighting for civil rights. Like no marginalized community has ever made any progress by being a cuck. So Mike's approach to all of this is very, what shall we say? I think the word I'm thinking of is weak and cucked. I think we'll go with that. That's my statement.
It's funny that I spoke about coming together and not judging individuals by collectivist ideology, and what you interpret that as is those weird trans people. it's sort of, you're giving a demonstration in how words mean nothing anymore. It's just such a boring talking point. Oh, you just want acceptance from the right wingers. You want to be one of the good ones. It's so funny because every LGBT person who goes against the cult ideology knows exactly what I'm talking about. That the visceral hatred you get. I mean, again, that's exactly what Dave Chappelle was talking about, that they quite literally bullied a trans woman into committing suicide because they don't care if you're trans, if you're gay, whatever. If you say one thing, as she did, say one thing that they disagree with. I just find that so funny, though, that like you want to be excluded from your entire dating pool, the people who control every industry, 90%, what feels like everyone in the LGBT community, everyone you can possibly date, to gain acceptance from who? Wine moms? Like, not that I don't love them. But, and, you know, when you talk about civil rights, I just think it's really funny that, like, when the biggest problem of a people is picketing a comedian who made some jokes and protesting a chicken sandwich, that is called privilege.
Okay. All right. So let's take one thing at a time here. So, I mean, okay, so you're crying about Dave Chappelle being canceled. Can we at least narrow this down a little bit? What is it about pride? So are you pro-pride or are you anti-pride?
What does that mean?
So do you think that I mean, it's weird that you can't answer that one, right? Are you for being, wait, shut up, just wait. Are you for being proud of your identity, or are you against being proud of your identity?
I mean, my sort of dream for LGBT people would be that me being gay is as irrelevant a factor as my eye color. You being trans is totally irrelevant. So sure. I don't know. I don't think you should be ashamed of it. No, I'm speaking. There's this great quote from some anime. I'm not one of those people who watches anime. However, there's this great quote that pride is not the antidote to shame. Only true humility is. And I think the alphabet can use a little humility.
I mean, okay. Let's just see where you are if you're even close to reality. Do you think that in this day and age, being LGBT is like fully accepted? Do you think we're equal?
I think we're the most equal, most accepted, most privileged LGBT Americans to walk the face of the earth. That's just a fact. Okay. I mean, no one's ever it's never going to happen that every single person likes you and every single person accepts you.
So wait. So like gay equality and liberation is civil rights, but trans equality and liberation is not civil rights?
It just sounds so wonderful, but what does that mean to you?
Well, saying, hey, the rest of the alphabet mafia is a cult, that will help you maybe as an individual.
Oh, it absolutely is a cult.
But it doesn't help LGBTQ people. Like saying the stuff that you say does not help us. It may help you because you're a collaborator, but it doesn't help us.
Who am I a collaborator with?
You're a collaborator with?
Of what exactly? You're a Milo Yiannopoulos like wannabe, right? I'm straight. I'm fake straight.
I mean, however you got to do to be accepted, right? Like, I don't know how
far the rabbit hole goes. Who do I want to be accepted by?
By people who
literally, you people cannot fathom any person having different opinions, that you have to rationalize it to yourself and think 1 in 3 LGBT people literally woke up one morning and said, gee, it's so important to me that I be shunned by my dating pool, shunned by my community, to be accepted by who?
Wait, what? What is it about? Wait,
exactly.
Wait, no, hold on a second. I gotta pick. Okay. Hold on. What are you talking about? Shunned by your dating community? What the fuck does that have to do with anything? And
do you seriously think that any LGBT person who disagrees with you, who has a mind of their own, have opinions of their own, want to be shunned by their entire community the way that they are, to the point that literally drives some to suicide? Because of what? To be accepted by who?
Wait. We don't have to like do anything to not be accepted by society, because we're already not accepted by society.
Oh, please.
People, queer people are driven to suicide because of the
What are
oppression
queer people?
by
I don't know. This
society.
is such a
Would
problem.
you shut the
that
fuck
that
up
is-
for
No,
a
I
second
won't.
while
This
I'm
is such
talking?
a problem.
No,
that is
you're
the
not going
word
to shut
that
the fuck up. You're
defines-
just going to talk.
Hang
over
on.
me.
We gotta
Okay.
get some order to the chaos.
I'm glad you said the word queer because that meant that it's so emblematic of the current state of the LGBT community. Do you believe that LGBT people are mentally disturbed?
No, of course
That
I
is
don't.
what the word queer means. Stop calling yourselves queer for fuck's sake.
Wait a second. You're going to die on this hill? You're saying that we cannot reclaim...
Absolutely.
Okay,
It took
all right.
gay people decades and trans
Psycho,
people took
shut the
LGBT
fuck up for a
decades to convince
Yeah, you gotta
society
let
we're
Pauly
not
respond,
mentally
Mike.
deranged. And now
Mikey, come on now.
Mike, you've gotta let Pauly respond.
I'm
Mike.
sorry.
Gotta let Pauly respond.
What
Go
the
ahead,
fuck?
Pauly.
You look way too young to be so much of a crybaby about the
Oh,
word
thank
queer.
you.
If a word is shut up for a second, Jesus Christ. Like, okay, so what civil rights movements that are successful often do is reclaim words that have been weaponized against them. Like you're going berserk as if you were talking to somebody, a person who has reclaimed the N-word, yelling at them for reclaiming the N-word. What the fuck is wrong with reclaiming queer?
It's very similar to black people may have reclaimed the N-word colloquially, but we don't replace the word black or African American with the N-word. Where do you think they would be if they did that? The entire LGBT is out just bandied around this word queer that goes in total defiance of everything that has brought us to this place of being the most equal LGBT people in American history.
Yeah, first, I don't even know that you're right about queer meaning mentally ill, but
look it up.
Even so, oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, okay.
Because you may think that you can will definitions of words into existence, but the dictionary exists. Dave Chappelle said it perfectly, actually, that the alphabet people like to make up words to win arguments. The dictionary exists, so you can look it up. Mentally unbalanced or deranged. Or
go ahead, Pauly.
That terminology.
Okay, so what's wrong with the word queer, I guess? What's wrong with reclaiming queer?
There are a lot of people who claim that as their entire identity now, and I'm not even sure what that would mean. And it's so funny too, because we are told that if you don't call a trans person exactly what they want to be called, even people who aren't trans, if you don't call them exactly what they want, it's an act of violence. But when people like me and many gay people say, I don't want to fucking be called queer, their heads explode.
Okay, you have to
talk why
to
the
me
insistence
like, I don't, okay,
on this
hold on a second.
thing?
Don't make up shit that I have not said and then tell me to answer it. I don't know what you're talking about. So like, again, let's just roll back to what I said before. People can reclaim words that have been used to oppress them. Do you agree that the word queer has been used to oppress LGBT people in the past? Okay, so then what's wrong with reclaiming that? That's weird that you're against it.
Because they want to make this the word that the entire community is bandied about. It's the entire ethos of the community, and it speaks to a much bigger issue because they're seeming kind of queer by the dictionary definition. How can you say, no, I'm speaking? How can you spend the decades that it took activists who won us the acceptance that we have to convince mainstream society gay people aren't some crazy anomaly. Trans people aren't mentally deranged. And now you people want to say, oh, no, never mind. By the way, we're queer. Either you're normal because you're LGBT or you're special because you're LGBT. You don't get to be both.
Let me ask you a question. If it turns out that the definition of queer doesn't have to do with mentally ill, will you concede the point? I'm just wondering if you'd concede the point.
It's literally the definition of it.
No, okay, all right, okay.
Of suspicious nature or character, mentally unbalanced or deranged.
I would allow. I would suggest people who are watching the debate just look it up. You don't get to say, even if you're part of the community, right? If the community at large says, "Hey, you know what? I think we should reclaim the word queer." You can cry about it all you want, but you can't call it a cult any more than you could call any marginalized group who tries to reclaim their power by taking language and reclaiming it a cult. That's a normal thing to do to fight oppression, unless you're a cuck.
Totally. That's not why I call it a cult. I call it a cult because it fits every single warning sign of every cult prevention league. It sounds like it was specifically written for this. And I think anyone watching knows the difference between what I'm saying, colloquialisms, and an entire community wrapping themselves in a destructive word. And like I said, it is totally emblematic of everything that is happening with them. You can't bemoan the fact then when people want to treat you as some weird other if you are telling them I am queer.
Are you going to die on this hill? Because I could easily just...
There are many hills.
All right. Yeah, because the dictionary is a conspiracy too against you.
No,
Gotcha.
it's just that this cult is very powerful and can bend CEOs, giant corporations, and entire governments to their will. And when you can do that, again, that's called privilege.
Do you think that the LGBTQ community has any special like claim on power?
You're proving my point by continuing to call it LGBTQ. So then I'm told that I have to be part of the LGBTQ.
Oh,
And
God,
for many people, not to harp on this is the last thing I'm going to say about it. For many people, it's something that they struggled with, is people thinking that they're abnormal for being gay, thinking that they're suspicious, shady, mentally deranged for being gay. They don't want to be part of your fucking queer community.
Polly, what would your definition of queer be?
Okay, this is really not super important. But the definition of queer is being reclaimed. We're trying to do that from a slur. You know, it used to mean like a weird sort of, you know, it was a gay man slur back in the day. You know, and it wasn't, it had nothing to do with mental health. It just said you're weird, you're strange, or you're gay, basically. It just said you're weird, you're strange, or you're gay, basically.
Okay. So what would your definition of it be, though? Is what I'm asking.
Oh, I mean, when I personally use it, it just encompasses basically the entire like LGBTQ community.
Oh, okay.
So queer means queer.
And Mike, what would your definition of it be?
Mental illness.
Okay.
It's so like I like dick, but I'm also mentally ill.
Should we delve into whether or not the LGBT is a cult? I feel like that's a I know it seems like this could last forever.
I mean, that's a good point, Mike. Can you flesh out what you mean by that?
Off the top of my head, there are different cult prevention leagues that list the warning signs of a cult. Amongst them are lack of critical thinking, fear of persecution, loss in sense of humor is one. Status of exalted enlightenment. The group is always right. Fear of outsiders, vilifying dissidents, anyone who's part of the group that disobeys them, for example, instilling fear in its followers, that the group is the only means of knowing truth.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Let's fear of persecution.
We're gonna have to take this like at least one at a time because I can't answer all of these at once. Like,
I didn't know when I came out that I was expected to be pledging an entire loyalty oath to an entire ideology, belief system, political party. In some ways, though, things are obviously better off now. In many ways, I think we kind of had the luxury of it being more individual back then. Back then, the LGBT community had a much more live and let live attitude, and there really is just nothing left in that community that is live and let live.
This is the first time in my lifetime, very recently, that not every single joke that had to do with trans people was not just the basic, lol, look, there's a guy in a dress sort of shit. Like, haha, we like yuck it up right now. Dave Chappelle shows that those jokes still fly, right? But that's all that we've had for a long time. It's only now where gay jokes, trans jokes, lesbian jokes, bi jokes, there's actually good humor in that area. It's not all just like dumbass oppressive humor. And that's good, right?
What did Dave Chappelle say that you take such issue with?
I mean, can we finish the cult thing first?
We'll come back to that. What did he say that you take such issue with?
Can we stay on topic?
Did you watch?
I know you want to pivot here.
Yeah, I do think it's fair that we at least flesh out the rest of the cult topic as Polly requests. Let's see if we can flesh that out a little bit more.
What?
You're talking about Dave Chappelle's transphobia. You don't know what he even said. You probably didn't even watch it. Did you?
Oh my God. Okay, so you're losing the debate so badly. You really want to keep hounding this? All right, fine. I will take you up on this. What the fuck? Okay, so if you say, hey, I'm team turf, that's saying, hey, I'm team transphobe. I have a problem with that. Saying trans women are doing blackface, I have a problem with that. That's fucking crazy. Anything else? Would you like anything else?
I think the only thing that matters, first of all, there's more context to those.
You
I think what matters is nobody's listening to the fact. I don't want to hear about what jokes Dave Chappelle said, because he talked about a very real thing, that the LGBT establishment is so vicious and so cult-like that his friend, who is a trans woman, committed suicide. And there's no introspection done. There is no reflection, nothing. Because, again, go back to the cult, the group is always right. The group is the only means of knowing truth. The group hates outsiders and dissidents.
Okay. Well, we were talking about Dave Chappelle and what was wrong with Dave Chappelle, because I guess Mike really is horny to talk about Dave Chappelle. And I already said, look, saying your team turf is transphobic by definition. Saying trans women wear blackface is ridiculous and not, like not even a joke. Well, he said turfs like me. He didn't say like me. He said, I'm team turf, and then said turf thinks trans women are doing blackface.
But I think that this is such
not sarcasm.
A key point. This is such a key point.
Such a key point. Go for it.
It's such a key point because Dave Chappelle made jokes about black people, white people, Jews, gays. Only one group flipped out about it. And this is why the trans community is gaining a horrible reputation and acceptance is going down, because, no offense, but they are becoming the screaming baby on the airplane of America. And most people are ready to reach for the parachute and jump.
Can we go back now to the cult?
Yeah, I would. I was actually going to suggest maybe we can get back to the hypothesis that Mike has of an LGBTQ cult.
If you want to go to one of the points with it, a dramatic loss in sense of humor is one, which ties into what we were saying. Like I said, we
don't like people saying I'm team KKK. We're not for that. I guess you won.
You think women who want to talk about biologically female issues are the same as the KKK?
Wait a second. Being a turf is being pro-transphobia, right?
I don't think most people call themselves turfs. That's just another word that's meant to slander people.
You're saying we can't laugh at Dave Chappelle, but you can't remember exactly what he said that we should have laughed at that we didn't.
I'm not telling you should laugh. I'm saying that when this has been, God, we've been talking about this longer than what happened in Afghanistan, than we've been talking about anything. When this is your biggest problem in the world, you're not oppressed. Things are not that bad. You're in a good spot in life. The sun is shining. The birds are chirping.
Would you just concede that your argument about loss of sense of humor is unsupported?
Dave Chappelle made jokes about black people, white people, Jews, gays. Only one group flipped out about it.
I mean, like, what you're saying is that people should laugh at naked statements of prejudice. And that's ridiculous. Nobody would say that that's something any marginalized person needs to do.
Prejudiced. The entire last half hour was a very heartfelt story about a trans friend and their beautiful friendship. But again, and this goes back to the cult issue, is that words have no meaning. Hate has been redefined as anyone disagreeing with you once. And that's exactly what Daphne Dorman did. We don't know what this woman's politics were. She disagreed with the trans activist once. And that is all it takes. And that is why it's cult.
Really quick, Polly, I don't actually know what turf is, and some of our viewers don't know either. Can you define it really quick?
Okay, it stands for trans exclusionary radical feminist.
Wasn't there something with the J.K. Rowling about all of that? Isn't that kind of like where that term kind of hit the mainstream? Am I wrong on that, or?
I don't know when it hit the mainstream, but yeah, I mean, she's a very good example of a turf.
I believe she said biological sex is real and exists and is a thing. And I don't see how that's at all incompatible even with being transgender.
I mean, that would be, you're continuing your pattern of straw manning things. Of course, that in and of itself doesn't mean shit. It is I'm not here to like relitigate why J.K. Rowling is a turf, but she is, and I don't even think she would dispute being called a TERF.
Oh, I guarantee you she would.
Well, she does not dispute TERF ideology. Maybe she doesn't like the name.
What?
Like most,
she believes biological sex exists?
Well, I mean, she doesn't think trans women are women.
But what does that mean even at this point? Like, these words have been devalued to mean nothing.
Can we... I know this is a challenge for you, but I really need you to continue to try to make your point. So far, you're 0 for 2 on the...
Such a nasty woman.
On your points that... Did you just call me a nasty woman? Jesus Christ.
Oh
okay.
God.
All right. So
maintain bearing.
Like I said, you're batting 0 for 2 here on the trying to prove that the LGBT is a cult. So why don't you try another one?
I want to go back real quick before we move on to J.K. Rowling, because again, you're proving his point that you make up these words to smear people. She said biological sex exists and is real. And then she is the villain of the month, just like Dave Chappelle is now. It is anyone who disagrees with you on one thing.
Why can't you just... Why do you have to pivot, right? I mean, okay, I think we all know why you have to pivot.
How many examples do you want?
All right, dog. All right, dog. We're talking about not J.K. Rowling. I mean, if you want to talk about J.K. Rowling, we can do like we did about Dave Chappelle, but you're going to get owned, So let's just... I want you to just keep one thought in your head. The LGBT cult. People in the chat want to know your arguments too. Okay, so J.K. Rowling, we can talk about why she's a TERF, right? But I don't...
She's not.
Okay, all right. Anyway, your example for somebody who is not a TERF is Dave Chappelle. So you're sus there. Give me an argument with support, hopefully this time, as to why the LGBT is a cult.
Lack of critical thinking, fear of persecution, loss in sense of humor is one. Status of exalted enlightenment, the group is always right. Fear of outsiders, vilifying dissidents, anyone who's part of the group that disobeys them, for example. Instilling fear in its followers, that the group is the only means of knowing truth. Fear of persecution.
We're going to have to take this at least one at a time, because
I can't answer all of these at once.
I can't answer all of these at once.
Tell me how it is not any of these.
Just pick one. Don't dish gallop me. Pick one.
How about dissidents being vilified as traitors?
Okay. Dissidents being vilified as traitors.
LGBT. 1 in 3 LGBT people voted Republican in the last election. That is not some small minority. And the group of people who maybe don't fit into that box but disagree with the cult ideology is way more than that. So we know at minimum it's about 1 in 3 LGBT Americans. That is not some minuscule minority.
Okay, so what do dissidents say from the LGBT hegemonic majority, the powerful people? What do they say that causes them to be vilified? Just give me an example, or just tell me what they generally say that gets shouted down.
Anything, literally anything. I'll give you one example. There was a 21-year-old gay kid named Wilson Gavin who committed suicide, again, just like Daphne Dorman before him, because he was so vilified by these alphabet people, because his crime was saying drag queens are not for kids, and he was against drag queen story time. Okay, so it's literally, you disagree with them once and you will see their true colors.
Okay, so I feel like what you're trying to do here is you're trying to say that there are certain people who disagree with the general approach by the LGBT community, for example, to regain some semblance of equality or to further our civil rights, right? But there's other people like you, for example, right? You for example, who wants to tell us who choose to fight, maybe even audibly and maybe even offensively to people, that we're wrong, right? And then we say, no, you're wrong. That's not cultish behavior. That's actually discussion. There's lots of pick-me's in the community like you.
Oh, who do we want to be picked? I know that's your new buzzword, and again, another sign of a cult that the group has its own jargon and terminology, and you just showed another one of them. Who do we want to be picked by? It's so important to me. Wine moms, please like me. I mean, I do love my MAGA wine moms, but
are you? I mean, you understand that like there are traitors to communities, right? Particularly marginalized communities. Those people exist, don't you think? Or no such thing.
I think that it's sure one or two, whatever. I'm not interested because that's just what the ideology loves to vilify anyone with. So you think that at minimum 1 in 3 LGBT Americans are traitors?
Wait, I never said that. Wait.
Well, 1 in 3 LGBT. Well, that's what the entire LGBT media only exists to smear other LGBT people who don't vote Democrat, who aren't leftists. And I'm telling you, it's 1 in 3. So you literally think 1 in 3 LGBT Americans are traitors and just hate themselves. And
I can tell you this: no cult exists with where a third of their group is dissenting. So even your own argument in favor of a cult causes your argument that it's a cult to fail.
Are you kidding? Of course. How about Scientology? People disappear and leave that in droves. Probably twice or 3 times as many people as used to be Scientologists are now. And that's exactly what is happening with the alphabet establishment. People are leaving that shit in droves.
Well, a third of our community isn't pick-me's. I don't think that's true. I think you're a pick-me.
Who do I want to be picked by?
I don't know. You love the far right. I mean, that's cool.
Hey,
whatever. Whatever, dog.
You're right. I have the jarring of the far right.
But anyway, okay.
So, far right?
So if it's a cult, it's a pretty ineffective cult.
How do I love the far right? What is the far right?
I mean, the far right loves people from the LGBT community to shit on the
far right loves LGBT people.
Oh, dog, you didn't even let me finish the sentence. That kind of shows you're desperate. The far right loves when people from the LGBT community, or really, let's just face it, any marginalized community, are willing to shit on that community from which they come, because it gives them license to ignore their rightful demands for civil rights.
What you decide is rightful. Again, another warning sign of a cult. The group is the only means of knowing truth, and you're proving that.
Well, okay, wait, hold on a second.
That's what the far right is. The far right is people who love LGBT people that take issues with the LGBT establishment. That's the far right.
Wait, what?
Exactly.
Can I get you to say something that, okay, hold on. I really want to understand what you're saying. That sounded like a word salad. That it could be my fault.
Anyone but you.
What I would like to know, I don't even know what I was going to ask you now. Right. Okay. So do you think that if a marginalized group fights for equality, right? Equality. Say they want equality, right? Say they're so narrow-minded that the large majority of them want equality. Is that a sign that they're a cult because they sort of all kind of agree that they want equality as opposed to maybe less inequality?
I mean, you just told me that far right means people who love LGBT people with different opinions. So you're the last person who I'm going to take the definition of equality from. You can't even define far right, and you want me to trust your definition of equality? So sure, yeah, in theory, that's so beautiful, love and hope and equality and rainbows and sunshine, but clearly we have different definitions of what equality means. To me, equality means everyone being judged by the content of their character. We all deserve to be treated as individuals, and that is the number one thing that made me leave the left. Okay, because I can be around conservatives and Trump supporters and Republicans and be shown the respect of being treated as an individual, not a cardboard cutout, not an archetype.
Is it still important to you that I define what far right is? Because I didn't ever attempt to do that. I want to make that clear. I don't think it's important for me to define it. I think people know what it is.
No, I think it's just another theoretical, vague term that you use to smear people.
Okay. Or okay. Well, whatever. Okay. Is a group of people that wants to fight for equality, right? Equality.
Let me tell you what equality means. Equality means being treated just as shitty as everyone else. Like we were talking about Dave Chappelle, he made fun of blacks, whites, gays, Jews, but only one group is so special that they cannot be joked about. Equality would mean making jokes at the expense of trans people just like they do everyone else.
Okay, so
but the community wants to be treated simultaneously as superior and as handicapped inferiors. I mean, you talk about pride. They literally said that he was punching down. Who sees themselves that way? I'd be like, screw you.
Dog, you already conceded you don't even know what the fuck Dave Chappelle said. So stop using that talking point because you can't defend it. Now, also stop pivoting. My question to you is, if there is a group of people who is oppressed, do you think oppression can exist, right, based on people?
I don't believe that we are oppressed. I'm not oppressed.
Okay, look, do you think oppression exists?
Yes, oppression exists.
Okay, all right.
So real oppression are people.
Hold on. Do you think there can be prejudice against
about them? Because that doesn't line the pockets of Vlad and the HRC.
Do you think?
Hey guys, take your time. Chill out for a second.
So on the assumption, let's pick an easy one. On the assumption,
I saw that, Mike. I saw that party foul. I saw it, you fucker.
I don't know what to do. I think that if trans people decided to, as a group, say, "Hey, we want to fight for equality," do you think that's cult behavior?
When you insist on a very specific and narrow-minded cult-like definition of equality, absolutely. All trans people don't agree on what equality means, and they're totally vilified again as traitors, as whatever. So clearly we have very different ideas of what equality means.
Okay. So I don't know who you're talking to about that. If you want to ask what my definition of equality is, you sure can. But by saying like, the hegemonic majority of trans people wants an equality that's insane, and I'm against that. That's not a really argument.
And conformity over every aspect of our lives. I didn't say they want equality. Equality is the last thing they fucking want in terms of true equality, which, like I said, means being treated just as shitty as everyone else. Because the average person, whether you're white, black, young, old, whatever, most people are treated pretty shitty. Maybe it's just me. I live in New York. Maybe that's like a New York thing. But to me, that is true equality. When you can make fun of trans people, just like gay people, just like straight people. We're all the same. When we go to the bathroom, it's the same color. Yours is the same color as mine is.
Stop crying. Okay, look, please. You're talking to me. You're not talking to you're not shouting at like windmills or whatever. What?
Shouting at windmills?
When I say, or whatever the fuck you're doing, I don't know who you're arguing with. I'm right here. It doesn't seem like we can have a discussion. I need you to focus. If I say trans people as a group want equality, is that in itself cult-like behavior?
When you're demanding that I agree to your definition of what equality is, absolutely.
I didn't do that, did I?
Well, then what does equality mean?
Okay, all right. Now
babies being told they have no gender. Is that equality?
No. Liberation
what does
is
that
not
mean, equality. It just sounds so wonderful, but what does that mean to you?
Well,
the reason that average trans people are being hurt by the trans activists there are a million reasons, but one of them is that they are creating such a liability on the heads of average trans people. Trans people already have an unemployment rate that's higher than the national average. So now, do you think Netflix is going to keep hiring trans people when they know, when they're giving this image of trans people that you have to tiptoe around, you can't breathe in the wrong way, you can't make a wrong joke. They're painting this, what I think is a very false picture of trans people. I'll give you another example. There's this Broadway show that called Jagged Little Pill.
Okay, no, try not to Dick Gallop me. You've made a point. Now it's time for me to answer. All right, go ahead.
There's a show, Jagged Little Pill, that wanted to be the wokest show in the world. They are being picketed by trans activists who want it shut down because the trans characters weren't trans enough, apparently. Now, Do you
No,
think
they were
that
literally
any,
erased.
and I'm going to finish. Do you think that any
God.
Broadway producer is ever going to put their money
Okay.
towards another show with trans
Right.
people? And it's the
Okay.
same thing with Netflix. They know if they keep hiring people who are going to pick it at every joke and be so sensitive, they're just not going to hire you. So it is putting a liability on the heads of every trans people. And when trans people become unemployable, that means that they will be pushed more towards things that are very dangerous for them. Sex work, abusive relationships, drugs. So, I mean, trans people are more harmed by trans activists than any joke that a comedian said.
Okay, so I would like to remind the audience that we're talking about whether or not LGBT people are a cult, and Mike has pivoted now to discuss whether or not our techniques of trying to gain equality are correct or wrong.
What you say?
Hey, shut the fuck up, dog.
You gotta let Paulie finish, Mike. Let Paulie finish. Mike, you gotta let Paulie finish. Paulie, let you finish.
You gotta fucking let me answer your. I mean, you talk forever, dog. All right, so like, you haven't made your point about cults. So instead, you're saying, hey.
Lack of critical thinking, fear of persecution, loss in sense of humor is one. Status of exalted enlightenment, the group is always right. Fear of outsiders, vilifying dissidents, instilling fear in its followers. That the group is the only means of knowing truth.
I can't answer all of these at once. Like,
I can't answer all of these at once. Like,
you trans people have to act nicer. Otherwise, you will not be accepted. If you, for example, fight against somebody who has a large platform on Netflix and is transphobic,
it's not transphobic.
Therefore, okay, if you fight against people aggressively against transphobia,
he doesn't do
you're
that.
Gonna hurt other. Holy fuck! Any civil rights movement has ever succeeded from being a cuck or from being like, oh my gosh, please accept me, please pick me, sort of shit. We want to say we're here, we're queer, and get the fuck used to it. There's nothing wrong with that.
How about what happened to we're here, we're the same as everyone else? We just want to be a normal person. I want to be the same as anyone else. I want the same things.
You're an all lives matter, Andy. I get it.
I still want to know who I'm being picked by.
All right. Can we go to questions?
You don't know because you make up words, we make up definitions, you just throw out these words in a very cult-like way to just smear people and deem everyone as the bad people, and you don't even know what you're talking about.
Okay, all right, fine. I will answer you. You want to be picked by the people who have historically oppressed people like you because it makes you feel okay with yourself. Because you, like many people from our community, feel like, you may not be treated fairly as you are. And so it's nice to hear, hey, would you let me talk? You asked me a question. So it feels nice when people who might have historically oppressed you, like people from the far right, be like, you're one of the good ones. Like that can make you feel good. That's a very tantalizing thing for people to do.
For who?
Like I said, for the individual. It doesn't help the rest of your community to be like you. It does help you. Because it helps your identity, it helps your sense of self. It may even help you get by in the world easier because you have support that the rest of us do not, because you're willing to sell the rest of us
absolutely, yeah, that's the one true thing you said, is I do have support you do not in being treated as an individual and my own unique person.
Sure.
And not a collective cult like you guys.
But keep in mind, to get the treatment that you've gotten, you've had to shit on the rest of us.
How have I shit on you?
I will leave it to the viewers here.
We've got a lot of questions. And we're going to let both of you guys give some closing statements.
Sure. I would just say to everybody, be your own person. You are so much more than your sexual orientation, your gender identity. And to anybody watching this who maybe is further right, not that I describe that as she does, I hope I can convey that there is a difference between this cult ideology and LGBT people who are complex individuals. The entire LGBT establishment, as I pointed out, so many different cult warning signs, only exists to instill fear in people with false talking point after false talking point, from the fake epidemic of trans people being murdered when a member of the general public is 4 times more likely to be the victim of a homicide than a trans person, to the appointment of Neil Gorsuch when all the LGBT groups were saying he's going to have LGBT people murdered, and then he turned out to be the deciding vote for the Civil Rights Act applying to LGBT people. So these people are con artists and identity is their snake oil. And the the fight is not gay versus trans versus whoever. It is really libertarian versus authoritarian. This is an authoritarian ideology, and every individual and liberty-minded person really needs to come together, because this is just one aspect of a much greater authoritarian ideology that seeks to control everyone. So be your own person.
Polly, your closing statement, please.
Okay, so I hope it's very clear that my dude over here can say a lot of fucking words, right? Like they're a cult, they're a scary group that's coming to get your kids, or that even more wildly, like he can't even stay cool. Stay cool, my dude. He even at the last minute, because I guess he assumes I don't know, says that like trans women are less likely to be killed than the general population, which is fucking insane. Just so we all know, trans women are killed at a much higher rate than,
no, they are not.
Basically, oh, fuck off.
This
dude.
is Polly's closing mic.
Yeah,
Polly's closing.
Okay. What I assume you're doing is failing at math, because there's like fewer trans women, so of course there's going to be fewer of them killed. But on a per capita basis, it's okay. Dog. Whenever you take a position on something, a firm position, it's been shown to be wrong. So, in closing, I would say that my guy can assert that the LGBT is a cult. He can assert that saying somebody is queer is a mental illness. He's got to put words up there, because he can't even let me speak without getting a word in. Very, very nice. When I have actually pinned him down and we have had the argument, he loses, and loses badly. Every single one of his points trying to show the LGBT was a cult made no sense. It was, shown to be wrong, and therefore he can't make the claim, but he still does, of course, because, I guess you can't admit you lost. So you might as well say, hey, it's still a cult. Now, let me tell you what the LGBT really does stand for. And it does stand for cooperation, and it does stand for conversation. But ultimately, what we want is to be treated equally, right? We want to have the same opportunities as everyone else, right? And to the extent that some people may have already gotten theirs, perhaps in doing by shitting on the rest of us, that doesn't make it such that we are any less able to continue to try to fight for equality.
My first question to Polly is kind of an honest one. Do you think I actually hate you when I refuse to call you by the gender you choose?
What?
It's kind of going to Mike Harlow's point, when it's kind of a cultic when you say I automatically think you're, you assume that I hate you. You assume that I'm a transphobe just because I refuse to use some kind of language, right? Isn't that kind of cultic? If I don't use the words you want me to, you're automatically a transphobe and should receive some kind of social or legal punishment?
This is wild. I hear they're saying that's okay. So I assume you don't think hate speech is really good, right?
Say that one more time.
I assume you're not pro hate speech.
There's no such thing as hate speech.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Shut the fuck up. I assume you're not pro hate speech. Pedro.
Well,
yes, good things are good and bad things are bad.
God, my guy cannot.
If you're talking to me and you're asking me what is hate speech, I would kind of agree with Mike in this sense, where I think through life, people have called me all kinds of things under the sun, said things under the sun that I don't like. And I have had to exercise discernment to, wade through that. And instead of, just throwing it over my shoulder and saying it doesn't count for anything, I measure through it, think through it, and I meditate on it, and I turn it into a stepping stool to make me something greater in life. So I don't count it as hate speech. I just count it as a rock that I need to get past.
Are you a moderator? Like, what the fuck's going on here?
Well, like I said, Polly, once the debate's over, we tend to ask our own questions.
Okay, my bad, Polly.
When you look at the entire alphabet industry in lockstep, the entire LGBT media in lockstep with one political party. And it doesn't matter if that party even has like an anti-LGBT history, as they so often do. I mean, look at Joe Biden. We all know his record for 50 years. But I mean, they will all convince you that then if you don't vote for him, you're anti-LGBT. And people can look up for themselves every single warning sign of a cult. If it doesn't ring a bell for them, I don't know what to tell you. And I think you brought up another good example of that. Like if you look at examples that are happening a lot in Canada and Europe, Bill C-16, for example, there's only one group that's trying to pass compelled speech laws. There's no other group in the world that has shown, or in the West at least, that's shown that protection.
Gotcha. Thanks for clarifying that for me. I appreciate it.
And I'll say also, sorry, just to respond to what Pedro said, I have a little bit of a different view that to me, Polly, the way that I view trans people, the way I see them, to me, you are no different than any other woman. I hate the fact that because the trans community has gotten so radical that it's difficult for me to agree with the statement anymore, trans women are women, because there's a component to that of them trying to say biological sex doesn't exist and stuff. But to me, trans women are trans women.
What is both debaters' take on hormone blockers for children?
So we should treat trans kids medically as their doctor says is appropriate. We don't need the state to legislate, individual decisions by doctors. You can save lives, you can help kids and not hurt them.
All right. Did you want to interact with that, Mike?
It is heinous what is happening with gender ideology being enforced on young children when you have, and it goes beyond just hormone blockers, when you have parents deciding to lie to their infants and babies and toddlers and tell them that they have no gender, they're a baby. It is so sick. Ideology and it goes to show just how powerful and tightly controlled the LGBT establishment is. The way that ideology has infected medicine. There's so much. I mean, in many ways, this can't even be studied or researched because then it'll get censored. Then they're afraid of the political pressure. Brown University had to censor a study that they did about rapid onset gender dysphoria. So it is so horrible what is happening. Let kids be kids. Don't push them to being gay. Don't push them to being trans. Don't push them to being straight. Let kids be kids. And young children should not be making any lifelong medical decisions.
It's Brilliant. Can we agree that trans women are biological males, or is that transphobia?
Well, I think the term. I mean, this is part of why people like. Biological male isn't as simple as you say that it is. And if I were to say, hey, look, we like to use the term like I was assigned male at birth, right? That's the terminology we like to use.
All right, Mike, do you want to interact with that?
It's just more complicated than that.
Sorry.
I totally disagree with the assigned at birth label, and especially in context of the larger movement of them saying, like I mentioned, that it's okay to not tell babies their gender and stuff. Doctors do not assign gender. That's impossible. I don't think that's transphobia to say. I mean, I wouldn't go up to a trans person and say that. That's just fucking rude. But yeah, I think we should. I think there's this bigger picture of the trans community wanting to erase our differences, and our differences are a great thing. Like, that's a unique experience, being a biological male, transitioning, becoming a trans woman. And I think that's something that should be embraced. I don't think that's phobic at all.
Trans women are women, though, and trans girls are girls, you understand, right?
Trans women are trans women.
Women? Okay, well, that's like saying trans women aren't women, right? When you say trans women are trans women, that's not really saying anything.
I view trans women as women, but it's difficult. Like I said, it's difficult to agree with that when you see the things that are coming along with co-signing that. What I would say is this is why it is so important, especially for LGBT people. This is why it is so important to preserve the definitions of words. The word trans has been devalued to mean nothing. I barely know what it means anymore. And I think what's important to point out is whenever there are situations, like there was one recently where a girl was assaulted in a bathroom. Whenever there are these situations of people being abused or assaulted, It is so very rarely an actual transgender person. Every single time, it is some man who puts on a skirt and decides to call himself trans, which is why, they like to use the word gatekeeping a lot. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, always. I think transgender should have a specific meaning.
The next one is from John Hoffman. Is anybody keeping Polly from working or expressing her belief? So is he saying, is anyone actively right now, do you think is oppressing you?
So I'm a streamer, right? And I could tell you, right, that I am constantly getting bombarded with transphobia and hate and death threats, and I stay on despite that. So the answer is fuck yes.
Do you want to know the names I get called? You called me a Nazi on Twitter before this stream. My dad's side of the family are Holocaust survivors who are Jewish. My mom's side of the family are veterans who fought the Nazis. You deal with words. I am not oppressed. I'm a strong individual. You can call me whatever the hell you want. It doesn't affect my day anyway. I will rise above it.
Well, I think the crux of the question was, am I actually talking about oppression that exists in my life? And the answer is yes.
You're not oppressed.
Okay, and this next one was...
If that's your example, that is called privilege. And that is how privileged modern LGBT people are. God, I mean, we were once serious people. We were fun people. Now we're the people who protested chicken sandwich. It's insane.
Okay, all right.
You protested a chicken sandwich? Which one?
That was
Chick-fil-A.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
All right, well...
Why did that happen?
I'm sorry. I like Chick-fil-A more than I like gay people.
I'll give you a real-life example. I have to be careful. Say I'm on a date. I have to be careful just in case someone doesn't know that I'm trans, that I tell them that I am in a safe place so I don't get fucking killed.
What, you feel like you're going to be killed?
Or hurt. Of course I do. Of course. Because sometimes when you tell a person that you are trans, they do not take it that well. And the best thing that could happen is that they just tell you to fuck off and never talk to you again. Right? But sometimes it doesn't go that well. I'm giving an example, right? So like the fucking online example wasn't good enough for my dude here. So I tried to say, here's an in real life example on, when I'm out at a bar and somebody thinks they're going to hit on me or whatever the fuck.
Okay.
It's a very delicate situation that people who are not trans might not necessarily realize can go sideways because you just don't know. So when a fucking person over here says you're not oppressed, not having walked in my shoes, you can fuck off of that, my dude.
There are issues that every single group of people deal with that other people can't understand. That is absolutely an issue that trans people face that I would think might be difficult. I don't think you can have any honest relationship based in lies, so you should tell people up front, but that doesn't make you oppressed. There are plenty of things that non-transgender people deal with that you might not.
All right, so fuck, I guess, so long as you can point to anybody else who is oppressed in some way, then any group can be oppressed according to that logic, right? And it doesn't matter. We shouldn't do shit about oppression because everybody is oppressed by somehow at the end.
What do you want to do about that, though?
Even if fight.
So people might
fight.
You want
fight
to
for
fight
equality.
someone because they won't date you.
Huh? No, I'm talking about you.
So
Fight
if that's
for
why
equality.
you've listed your oppression as getting mean things said to you online, which and people maybe not wanting to date you because you're trans. So what do you want to do about that?
But those are just two. Okay, so remember the question came from somebody in the chat that's like, Polly, what is the real oppression you've faced? I come out with two. I could keep going, but I think I would hope that the examples I gave helped illustrate that maybe there is some level of oppression that may be worth us fighting against.
But how do you fight against those two specific things? Particularly the dating one. How do you fight against that? Because there are plenty of things that I face. Like, for example, gay people are a very small minority, so my dating pool is way smaller. Like, that's just a fact of life, though. That doesn't mean, what am I going to do? Fight to make every person gay? And then there are just people who don't want to sleep with me because, like, I'm an obnoxious bitch. So, individuality.
You are kind of an obnoxious bitch, Mike. No, I'm
Guy.
kidding. I'm kidding. I just wanted to throw it. I just wanted to throw it in to be
Stop
a dick
oppressing
because
me.
fuck it.
I'm on Twitch. You can also go on Twitter, and I'm at Polly_people.
Okay, to the obnoxious bitch. No.
See, that is what equality is, my friends.